Welcome to the Leverage Show. This is Brett Ingram. The topic for today is the relationship paradox. Now, I think one of the very interesting things that's sort of evolved in time is in business and in life in general. Things were always about sort of personal contact and personal communication, but as technology has improved and it's allowed the transfer of information and data to happen so quickly and so easily, the irony, the great irony or paradox in our relationships now is that we have a lot more people that we're connected to, but those connections are a lot more superficial. And this has very real implications in both your personal life and also your business life, which is why I bring it up. It's not something that's completely trivial or immaterial. I think real relationships that are deep and that are based on something more than a few emote icons or, something like that on a Skype chat or in a Facebook group are something that, a lot of times get undervalued and overlooked. And this is definitely appropriate in your personal life because you can be connected to a lot of people, but just because you saw a picture of the steak that they had for dinner last night and you sort of know what their schedule was for the day because they posted that on social media, it doesn't really mean that your relationship with them is any better. And when we take it back and we sort of look at it from a business perspective, this is, potentially damaging to your business success and to your brand and to your long-term prospects. And this is exactly what I mean. So we're able to connect to 1 million people now. And we can do it on Facebook. We can do it on Twitter. We can do it on Skype. And so we've learned to think and talk in basically sound bites and 140 characters and, sort of these slang expressions and everything. And so we have ready access to everybody all the time. But at the same time, the quality of all of those interactions has gone way down from, the old days, if you want to think of it that way, where people would write a handwritten letter. There's something different about a handwritten letter versus a typed letter. There's no doubt about it. There's a personal feel to it. There's something different about a phone call and hearing someone's voice tell you a message versus, even if it's a voicemail, versus getting a text with the same information. There's something different about sitting across the table with somebody face to face, having dinner or having a drink and discussing something than there is, chatting back and forth on Facebook or Skype. There just are no two ways about it. It's just a simple fact. Now, that doesn't mean all of the new interactions and all of that stuff is useless or that it's bad. It can be an excellent tool, but it isn't a replacement for relationships. And I'm going to give you some specific examples and some details about why this is so important and what you can actually do about it to make this better. Because here's the problem. When you have a bunch of these superficial relationships, and let's just focus right now on the business side of things, because in your personal life, I think you can pretty much see what the consequences are. If you're not having real conversations with people, if you're not getting together with your friends and your family, and you're not doing all of these things that sort of build the richness and depth of those relationships, you already know what I'm talking about because you can sort of feel that. It has a visceral feel to it where everything feels a little hollow. The irony, the great irony of children being brought up in this day and age is that there's a tremendous feeling of isolationism and sort of feeling totally alone, yet they're connected to everybody all the time. And that's the reason for it. It's because it's all superficial. There isn't any depth in those relationships. It's really important to cultivate some very deep relationships. So let's focus on the business side. So on the business side, what I'm talking about specifically is when you have relationships with people, and I'm talking about potential partners, I'm talking about vendors, customers, your employees, every single person you come in contact with as a brand, as a business, as an employer, whatever, the community, when those relationships are all based on superficiality, the problem that you run into is that you become transactional for the people that you're dealing with. So in other words, if you don't have a good relationship with your employees, it doesn't mean they're all going to quit. They need a paycheck. So as long as things are going okay for your business, they're going to do what they need to do to get the paycheck. Your vendors, they're going to keep selling to you. You know, the people that you're, you know, your clients, they're going to keep buying from you as long as they're getting a service out of what you're providing. But here's where the danger comes in. And then I'm going to share a personal life experience with you to really bring this point home. If you have any kind of a problem, if you have a conflict with somebody, they're much less likely to come back and do business with you again because there isn't any relationship to fall back on. If there's competition, that all of a sudden they can get a better price, or your employee can get a better wage, or your customer can get a better deal, or your vendor can get better terms from the people they're selling to, they're gone because there isn't anything holding them there. You're just a transaction to them. You're an entry in a book. And that's a dangerous place to be because when times are good, things will be fine. But when times get rough, you can literally watch everything unravel on you overnight. If, you know, pricing, competition, mistakes, if you make a mistake, you know, if you offend somebody or you make a mistake with a delivery or whatever, they're going to be much less likely to be tolerant of that and understanding of that. Now, if you have strong relationships, all of those things can be overcome. When you deal with a client that really loves you for who you are and for the relationship that you have, if you have a conflict over something, if you have a disagreement, they're not going to cut you loose. You know, you might need a cooling off period or whatever, but they'll come back around because they value that, especially when they start to see other offers and those companies and those people are all transactional based because everybody's about speed. Everybody's about get the job done. So competition, you know, again, your customers are much less likely to price shop if they're happy where they are. In my own personal life, I can tell you from an insurance standpoint, from, you know, cars that I've bought, from other things that I've paid for, I already know I'm paying more than what I could get elsewhere. And you know what? I don't care. I get letters in the mail all the time and I rip them up. Because until there's a reason for me to change, I don't care about a few dollars here and there over something like that. The past history that I have with the people that I deal with is strong enough that I give them the benefit of the doubt. And so all of those things really matter. Now, let me take it a step further and take it into my business life. When I was working in the staffing industry, you know, I was a sales guy basically. So my job was to go out and to get new clients so we could fill jobs for them. And so I had to go out and, you know, I would call on these clients, and I worked in a very competitive area in the Northeast, basically the New York City suburbs. It's extremely competitive for staffing and just about everything else. And so I had called on one particular client, just to give you an idea of how competitive it is, at noon. So we were about halfway through the day. And she had said to me, do you know that you are the 7th call that I've gotten today from a recruiter? 7 by noon. So to think that it isn't competitive and to think that relationships don't matter is ridiculous. But it gets worse than that. So I had relationships with clients, and then I was aligned with a new boss, a regional director, and his job was to sort of come around and visit all of the offices and go out with all of the account managers to see what clients they had and what kind of stuff they had going on. And this guy was a transaction-based, it's all business, everything else. And so we went on one client call, and we were sitting there with the hiring manager, and I was teasing her because she had a Mets little statue or bobblehead, and I'm a Red Sox fan. So for me, the Mets, I don't like them. And so I was teasing her about it, and we had some jokes and some laughs going back and forth. And we talked about her kids and my kids and some other things like that. So we get out of the meeting, And on the way back to the car, my boss says to me, you really got to cut out the small talk. Clients don't care about that. All they want to know is, like, what kind of candidates do we have? What openings do they have to fill? And I knew from that day that I wasn't a fit for that company because he's wrong. It's actually the exact opposite that's true. The only thing they care about is the relationship. Because remember, they're getting 7 calls by lunchtime. Do you think that every time I'm going to have the best candidate, every time I'm going to get to them with the fastest service? Well, if I treat it the way my boss wanted me to, I better damn well hope I do. Because the minute that I'm not useful to that client anymore, I'm gone. There's no relationship. There's nothing to build on. There's nothing to fall back on. But instead, I had a relationship. And I knew what he didn't. And that is, I had submitted candidates to her in the past, and some of them weren't the right fit. We had had some issues over pricing and other things. But you know what? Every time she had a job opening, she came back to me. And that's because the relationship that I took time to build. And this is an important lesson because we've gotten into the habit of keeping everything on a very superficial level and making everything transactional. And that's a dangerous place to be because then you're only as good and valuable to everybody, your employees, your customers, your vendors, every person that you deal with, as long as you are a meal ticket or you have the best price. The minute that somebody else comes in with something better or builds a relationship behind your back with them, then you're going to find what I found with clients that I picked up from the person that was there before me. I would call and I would find out that they gave me a job, but they had already given it to 3 other people. That's because there was no relationship there. There wasn't any strong foundation. And so it was impossible to build anything long term. So that is sort of I guess a cautionary tale about why it's so important. Now, you can't spend all day, every day relationship building, and I completely understand that. But there are some shortcuts and things that you can do that are really important. First, you can prioritize the people that are the most important. Evaluate who your most important clients are. Evaluate who your most important vendors are, who your most important partners, who your most important employees. And I know that might sound a little, because we're evaluating one over another. But look, let's just be real about it. There are a vast majority of your customers, your clients, your employees that will produce far less than a very small minority. And when you focus on that minority, you build your business. When you focus on the majority, you shrink your business because the good people leave and you end up with a bunch of mediocre people all the way around. So determine who those really important players are in your business and in your life. I recommend you do this. And take the time to reach out to them. If you can meet with them face to face, that's the best. It always trumps everything else. In the industry that I'm in, it's based on internet marketing. And the fact of the matter is, more deals are made at live conference events than every other way, hands down. It's not even close. You go to these live events and you come out of there with so many relationships because as soon as you put a face to a name and you get to know somebody on a personal level, it takes that relationship to a whole new level where now when you start promoting for each other and helping each other out, there's a much deeper level of commitment than there is if it's all transactional. Again, if you can drive a lot of traffic to other people's offers, you can recruit people to drive traffic to yours, no doubt about it. And you never need to meet them. But the minute that your efficiency and effectiveness goes down and you're not driving as many sales and you're not driving as much traffic, you're dead to them. They're going to go off and deal with the people that they have relationships with. So it's really important to build those relationships in any business. And if you can get out face to face, great. Now, if you're in Houston and they're in Portland, Oregon, maybe you can't meet them face to face, and that's okay. But then what you want to do is either, try a handwritten note once in a while, or make a phone call once in a while, or even if you can only Skype and email and text and things like that, get personal with it. Move beyond just, hey, how many widgets do you need this month, Sal? And, move beyond all that stuff. Ask them about their kids. Ask them about their family, but do it genuinely. Take a genuine interest in who they are and understand that they're a real person and that, there are things that are important to them in their lives that maybe they've never shared with you. Get to know them on a personal level. Share details about your life also. And build that human connection with people because it goes a lot further. Make sure that your contact is more frequent. Reach out to people proactively, even when you don't need an order from them, even when you don't need something from them or asking them to buy something. Just reach out and say, hey, how are you doing today? I know that you said, your daughter was graduating. How'd the graduation go? I know you said your son was going to have a baby. How did all that stuff go? Was it a boy or a girl? What's his name? Inquire about things that are important to him. Hey, I know that you're a Packers fan. Glad to see that they made the playoffs this year. What do you think about Rodgers? Whatever the case may be. But just some things that take it beyond another level. And if you need to make notes about this stuff, then make notes. Keep a track. Keep, some sort of a record if you have a terrible memory. Because it's that important. That will build your relationship with people to a level that goes way beyond a transactional based thing. It insulates you from competition. It helps you overcome issues. It makes them want to buy from you and do business with you on terms other than just purely financial. And it just does, a whole bunch of good for a lot of other things. I mean, I can tell you in my own personal business life, I've been on both sides of that coin. I've built very strong relationships and I've neglected them. And I can tell you without a doubt, not only financially was I more successful and am I more successful when I'm focusing on those relationships, I'm also happier. I feel more fulfilled because I have relationships with people I'm dealing with. They're not just numbers and balance sheets to me. And that's really important. And, the other thing is, so you don't always feel like you're prying in their personal life. You don't always have to ask personal questions, but do things that are fun or have laughs about things. Things that are just non-business. You know what I mean? Talk about things that are in the media or talk about things that, are on the latest TV show. Find out what it is that they like. If they don't want to share personal details about their family with you, that's fine. But everybody has hobbies. Oh, you build model cars? I didn't know that. My grandfather used to, build model cars. And he had 57 Stutz or whatever. I'm not a car, so I have no idea. But my point is only that you find these points of connection and you leverage those points of connection to deepen your relationship with people. When you have real, honest, genuine relationships with people, all of that other stuff becomes less important. They're going to be less sensitive to price, less sensitive to competitors calling them. And what's great about that is it also buys you time where you don't always have to be in direct touch. The better your relationship, the more benefit of the doubt that you get. And so that is a really important lesson to take both in your business life and in your personal life. Deepen those relationships and make them real. Make sure they're not all just based on emojis and, ridiculous little expressions and things like that, and pictures of the dinner that you had last night, or, whatever the case may be. Focus on something that's more real and more genuine and more human, and you will see a tremendous increase in your happiness, in the quality and most likely success of your business, and in your personal relationships too. So, as always, if you have questions, if you have comments, if there's stuff that you want me to talk about on future episodes, just go to leverigeshow.com and you can leave me a voice message, you can leave me a video message, contact me any way that you want. I'd be happy to talk about that stuff on a future episode. And until then, make it happen.